Take your time, boo.
Okay, the floor is yours.
All right. Hi everybody. My name's Kelly. Today is day 77 without Kratom. It's also National Sober Day, so I just want to say congrats to everyone who is here today because we're doing it and we're doing it sober, which is amazing. Um, I guess I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised here in sunny South Florida, Fort Lauderdale. Only child, was an only grandchild on my mom's side. My grandmother was my everything. I do want to say trigger warning. My story does involve other drugs. It involves loss. Um, so I do want to say that for anyone who that might be triggering for. Um, Pretty normal life growing up. Was an athlete, played softball competitively, went to national states a couple times. I was also a cheerleader. Just real normal life. Um, when I was in ninth grade, my grandmother, who I said was like my everything, she got diagnosed with emphysema and lung cancer. And it was the first time well, my mom would pick me up from softball every day and we would go to the hospital and we would visit my grandmother who was on a ventilator in the ICU for many months. And she ended up passing away like a couple of days after Thanksgiving, my freshman year of high school. And I kind of went balls to the wall. I I started acting out in drugs and men. I came from a very strict Italian family. Um, my father can be very closed minded. So I was always fearful of telling him that I liked women. So to, kind of cover that up, I acted out on men. And just so he never knew, because I didn't want him to know. Um, Partied super hard throughout high school, like skipped a lot, did a lot of drugs, really like could care less about school. The end of my senior year, my grandfather got diagnosed with emphysema and lung cancer. And um, his like dying wish was to see me in my cap and gown. And it was my graduation morning. My dad went over there, pardon first. And I finished getting ready, and my mom and I went over there, and my dad was standing in the parking lot in the driveway crying. And I'd never seen my dad cry in 18 years. My grandfather had passed away. Um, and then 3 hours later, I had to go walk the stage and act like this is the best day of my life. I'm graduating high school. It was a very bittersweet day for me. I spent the next 3 years. I didn't go right to college. I didn't want to go to college. Like I said, I didn't really like school. It wasn't my thing. So I spent the next 3 years bartending in downtown Fort Lauderdale, just partying, living life. Also, it was the night of my high school graduation where I got introduced to cocaine. And that began a 10-year addiction. Working in bars in downtown Fort Lauderdale, we're open till 4 a.m. It helped. I ended up having a stalker, and he like stalked me for a while, and he would get caught and he would go to jail. And when he would get out of jail, he would continue to stalk me. And I was seeing a therapist at the time. And she said, Kelly, you have all this money saved. Like, move away, go to college. And it was like, never thought about that. So I do have my stalker to thank for my college education. Within 3 weeks, I signed up for school. I packed up my life and I moved to Orlando, and I went to community school for a couple years. Then I went to UCF, where I ended up graduating with 2 degrees in interpersonal communications and criminal justice, which is ironic. You'll later hear. Um, I wouldn't have graduated college without Adderall. Um, I mean, I probably could have, but Adderall became a huge part of my life on top of the cocaine and alcohol and pot and everything else I was consuming. Um, I ended up, when I was like 17, I was diagnosed with depression. Um, at 21, while I was in college, I was diagnosed as bipolar, which was a really tough diagnosis for me at that time because it was still like there was such a negative stigma around it. It actually happened to be the same day Jane Pauley came out as bipolar. I don't know if anyone knows who that is, but whatever. And it helped me accept the diagnosis. With that being said, I'm still on medication. I can't go off my medication. If I go off it, it's not good. I end up graduating college and I move back home and I score a killer career, fresh out of college, recruiting for a Fortune 500 company. And I was working like 12, 13, 14-hour days, and I was killing it. I was doing so good. I was making so much money. I was doing so much cocaine to work all those hours, and I was partying just as hard when I got off. One day during lunch, I was in the bathroom stall doing my lunch, and I came out. My boss was washing her hands, and she went like this, kind of itched her nose. I said, "Oh, do I have a boogie?" She said, "Meet me in my office." By the time I got to her office, she had my desk packed up, all in her office. They gave me a very healthy severance package, and they paid for me to go to rehab for the first time. And that was in 2008. I went to rehab for coke and alcohol, obviously, and I stayed clean for a little over 2 years. And in those 2 years, I was very involved in the program. All my, you know, I've never been like, I'm an open book. Like I'm not ashamed of my past in any way, shape, or form. So like my doctors, whatever, they all knew I was in recovery. I got into a car accident with a little over 2 years clean, and I ended up getting 4 herniated discs. And my primary care physician at the time prescribed me Percocets. I woke up the next morning and they weren't really helping. And my boyfriend at the time, he was using opiates the whole 6 months I was with him, but I'd never been around opiates, so I didn't know he was. And he said, "You should try a Roxy." And within a week of trying that, I was shooting up. Within a year of my first Roxy, I was arrested for the first time. This was during the pill mill era down here, and I started doctor shopping, and it was a yucky time in my life. I'm very grateful Christina and I didn't meet then, because she never would have looked at me. I was gross. I ended up getting arrested in the pharmacy parking lot selling my own prescription. I was given a couple chances and I couldn't stay clean. I just couldn't. And I fought my case. I ended up getting arrested for trafficking oxycodone, which holds a mandatory minimum of 3 years here in the state of Florida. Fought the case, kept getting arrested, would get sent to treatment, would cut off my ankle monitor. Like, Ugh. Anyway, my final arrest, I was stealing a can of paint from Lowe's. I was homeless, so I'm still not sure over 11 years later why I was stealing paint. Um, I got arrested, and that arrest I'll never forget. I detoxed in county jail off heroin. Um, laying naked on the linoleum floor, hugging the stainless steel toilet, just praying to God to never let me do that shit again or to just take me. Um, with that being said, I haven't touched the shit since. I ended up getting sentenced to 44.7 months in Florida State Prison, which saved my life. I am so grateful for the judge and the prosecutor for being a tough ass, because I don't think I'd be here to share my story today if I didn't get sent to prison when I did. So while I was there, I was in the best physical, mental, spiritual shape, health of my life. Every time the yard was open, I ran. I read a book a week. Fast forward to when I get out, I first day I get out, I go to my safe place, which was in those 2 years I was clean from 2008 to 2010 was Kava bars. They were always my safe place. They didn't allow drugs. Um, everyone was very similar. We all were in some sort of recovery. And that was my safe place. So the day I got out of prison, I went back to my safe place. And the kava tender who I knew, he was at our wedding, still a good friend of ours. He said, Kel, there's a new drink. You should try it. And I tried Kratom for the first time. And I loved it, obviously. And that became my new addiction, not knowing I was in full-blown addiction. I met Christina within a year of my release, and she was pretty bad alcoholic cokehead herself at the time. And within a couple months, I introduced her to Kratom. She did quit alcohol and cocaine, but she became addicted to Kratom at that point as well. During our addiction, I'll talk about that a little bit. I was a shell of a human. I had so many health issues that I didn't realize were connected to my Kratom usage. My hair was falling out, and I thought my cat was eating my hair in my sleep, which he does do that sometimes, but like not to the extent that my hair was falling out. I had blood work done numerous times because I thought I was going through like premenopause, perimenopause. Nothing was wrong ever. I'd been to the dermatologist a handful of times because thought I had adult acne. That was Kratom. My wife and I stopped being intimate with one another, and we thought one was this and one was that, and it was Kratom. I spent 5 years working in kava bars where my job was to get people hooked on Kratom. And when I found these rooms 70 days ago, we have 77 days. I found these rooms on day 7. I was so beat up and broken about that. Like, I literally spent 5 years telling people how great this shit was for them. But this is one of those drugs that you don't know until you know. And we've all said that like a bajillion times. But like, I'm watching people I served their first drink to like 4 years ago on social media, and they like have GoFundMes because their cat went to the vet. And it's like, if you quit Kratom, you could take your cat to the vet. And I don't mean to judge, like I really don't, but it's like I'm watching it destroy people's lives. And it's terrible. It's terrible. Um so why we quit? Why I quit? Um I realized we were a slave to this drug. An absolute slave. If we had to go on vacation, we had to stock up, spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars just so we could have our stash, so we could go away. And then we would run out in 2 days, and then we'd be sitting in the parking lot of a smoke shop in a strange state, in a strange city, waiting to get our next fix. It reminded me too much of heroin. Like it was getting icky yucky, and I just didn't like it. Um we went bowling one night. It was a really weird day. I'll never forget my last day using it. We went fishing with a friend we hadn't seen in forever. And he's like a big dude, like 6'2, 220, 230. And he kept saying, "Dang, Kelly, you had 3 of those. I only drink a small one." And I'm like, "Good." And then we'd go fishing, and we came back from fishing. He's like, "Dang, Kelly, you're on number 6." And I'm like, "You fucking T police? Like, yo." But in the back of my head, I'm like, he's not wrong. That night, a big group of us went bowling, and it was just a weird night. It was a weird night. And we went back to the kava bar afterwards, and I got my tea, and I said to Christine, I'm like, "I'm ready to go." And on the way home, I had my full tea, and I said to Christina, I said, "I'm not going to drink tea tomorrow." She said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I don't want to anymore. Like, I'm over it. I'm done." And I woke up the next morning, and that night, as I was laying in bed, I made a conscious decision. Um, I'm prescribed, again, I'm bipolar. I have very, very, very bad anxiety. I am prescribed Valium for onset panic attacks. I made a decision that I was going to put aside 10 Valium to take to help me with this detox. Um, I only ended up using 8, which I'm really proud of. I woke up the next morning. Christina wasn't on board at all. And we went to the kava bar that day, and she had a tea. And she looked at me while we were sitting there, and she's like, "You're really quitting, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah. And when I make my mind up, honey, there's no going back." She did finish her tea that day. And when we came home, she said, "I'm going to do it with you, babe. I'm going to do it with you." Like, we quit smoking cigarettes together. Like, why am I going to do this alone? So we went all in, and I used for 8, she used for 7 years. The last 8 months for me, I was only using extracts, and we quit cold turkey. The tea I brought home that Saturday night, I threw out. I did use Valium to help me. And I did use copious amounts of medical marijuana. Edibles definitely helped me with my sleep. And that's me. That's what helped me. Detox was rough. I shared with you a story about detoxing in county jail, and I did this with my wife in the comfort of our own home, not eating ramen, with my emotional support cats, and it was worse, way worse. Kratom is the worst detox I've ever detoxed off of in my whole life, and I've detoxed off some shit. Um, Kratom took a part of me that I'm still working very hard to get back. And I'll get there. I know I will. And after the physical withdrawals left, it was the depression. I believe I've shared, but it was day 10, and the depression was so real. I asked Christina to Baker Act me. She wouldn't. I I then asked her if she wanted to make a suicide pact, and it scared the shit out of her. And it scared the shit out of me. And we came to that. We were involved in the meetings at that point, and
it's a good thing I said no, by the way.
Yeah, real good thing, huh? And I'm glad she did. And with that being said, I do want to share, suicide is a big part of my life, which is weird and sad to say. And this is where I kind of wanted to tie it in. 8 years ago today, I lost my uncle to suicide. He was an amazing man. He also fought his own battles with alcoholism and drug addiction. Within a year of losing him to suicide, my best friend killed herself. She had a daughter at 14, and she lost her only daughter to an overdose. And at her daughter's funeral, I said to Christina, I said, I'll never see Hill again. And I didn't. Hill took her own life 10 days later. Less than a year later, my other best friend committed suicide. She was going through a lot of psychosis. She thought people were poisoning her. She had playing cards stapled to her ceiling because the FBI were watching her. She couldn't see past her psychosis, which was terrifying to watch. With that being said, I've suffered a lot of loss in my life, and this isn't counting those I've lost to overdoses or car accidents or just random shit. I would never, ever take my own life. And to think that Kratom had me thinking that way scares the shit out of me. If I ever have a craving or an urge, I just remember that day and I keep fighting. I just fight. Life post quit. Let's get into the good shit. And then, oh yeah, I gotta get going soon. Well, I don't gotta get going, but you know what I mean. Post quit, 77 days, and life is fucking epic. My hair is thick. I still gotta dye the grays. That'll never go away. My skin has cleared up. There's no adult acne. My wife and I are intimate. We're seeing our families on a regular basis. I got a real fucking job. I'm not working in a kava bar anymore, making real fucking money. I just can't say enough. We had this fucking pipe burst in our walls yesterday, and normally I can get pretty nasty. I can get pretty savage. And I handled it with calm and ease. I mean, I got a little iffy here and there, but like, it wasn't the normal Kelly. Like, you got to get the fuck over here right now or I'm calling the cops. I mean, I wouldn't call the cops because of a leak. That was dumb. But like, it wasn't the normal Kelly. Like, I'm so much more chill. I'm so much more like at peace with life and like accepting of bad things and like even embrace the bad things now. Life is pretty good. I really can't complain much. I know that it's a hell of a lot better since we quit. I know my life was unmanageable on Kratom, and I know that it's not anymore. I know that when I was on Kratom, I was in a constant fog, and like always kind of, it almost made me like paranoid, and it did make me paranoid. It did. And that paranoia has totally subsided. There's just, I can't say enough about all the great things that have changed and happened since I quit, opposed to when I was using. So like everyone says, like my worst day off Kratom is like my best day using. And like that's so true. And can't, I couldn't have done it without you guys. Like we found this group on day 7, and I don't know how we did the first 7 days without you guys. You guys have been pivotal in my recovery and our recovery. And I don't know, I can't express my gratitude enough for you guys and my gratitude for just being off this shit and being fully present for like myself and my marriage and my job and my family and my cats and my friends. And like, it feels so good to be present again. And with that, I think that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for listening. And I'm thirsty.
And we'll open up the floor now to anybody who wants to share or has any feedback for Kelly or just wants to share where you guys are at right now. Who's gonna go ahead and go first? Anybody? Lauren, maybe? Austin? Calling y'all out?
I'll share.
No pressure.
Hey. Oh my gosh, what a good share, Kel. I loved it. Obviously I know a lot of your story just because we're so close. And